Hi everybody! We're going to be using this beautiful Tag Sherbet Fizz split cake for our design today. And I've got my trusty kabuki brush. I use kabukis quite a bit. They're very similar to sponges in that you can't have them too wet, and you have to kind of tap 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 when you're getting color down. And I'm making some kind of unusual shapes here because I'm going to be using a cool stencil over the shapes, you know, and I'm trying to think about how I'm going to use that stencil, but basic shapes involved in the stencil. It's kind of a lacy looking stencil. So that's how I'm choosing my shapes here. And I roll this kabuki from side to side on that 50-gram split cake. So if I feel, you know, I roll one side is real green, and then the other side I roll it over and it's pink and purple. So that's how I load that. There's my Diamond FX black, my favorite black, and I'm going to be using a finger pouncer for the stencil. Finger pouncers are great because they don't pick up too much water, but they have to be certainly saturated enough with paint and wet enough that they'll give you a good result. Your paint needs to be dry underneath, which it's great. I think I did great on this today. I don't always do great on it to check. But if it's loaded correctly, boy, that finger pouncer, that gives you a great result on the stencil. And I'm focusing in on this sort of flower shape for the top part. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? The stencil it's all over kind of lacy, but you can choose just parts of it to call out things in different parts of your face. So the flower is kind of the central theme I'm going for, and then I'm just going to get a little bit of lacy business going over my eye too. And you never know exactly how a stencil is going to turn out when you're doing kind of a design like this. It's sort of amorphous. So I'm going to let where I've put my design work determine how I'm going to line it. And it occurred to me that it would be very pretty to have a tattoo looking edge to kind of a lacy looking design. It's kind of feminine and masculine at the same time. So I've got my Low Cornell Gold Grips number 4 here. That's my go-to liner brush. And the reason is because I can get very thin lines, I think, with it, and then also very thick lines. And I'm going to be using some sort of some lines that have a tattoo-y element to them. So some of the elements in tribal tattoos are these thorns, like I'm doing there, kind of thorn shapes. You'll see that a lot. You'll see these sort of half moon shapes, like I'm going to do above here, which is sort of half moon that turns into a thorn down below. And you can flow your lines out and web them in such ways that they have very lovely thin ends and really thick towards the middle, and they have a certain flow to them, maybe a little bit like a wave or something. And that looks very tribally. You can also put in parallels. That will take a regular line, a curve or whatever, and make it look kind of tribal. So these are some of the elements: parallels, thorns, half moon shapes. There's another parallel right there. All of these things make it look sort of tribal. If you're trying to, I've had that question a lot. How can I get the lines to look tribal, or what makes it look tribal as opposed to something else? And these are some of the elements. So since I don't really know what I'm doing here, I'm looking for balance. I'm making it up, but I'm looking for balance. If you do a parallel in one area, you're going to have to, for your flow, you're going to have to do that, mimic it in another area, right? So that's what I'm doing. And then you come up, it's so fun because then you come up with this shape that you haven't really ever done before. Every face you do is going to be a little bit different, and it has this tribal looking side to it, and it's so fun to play with. One of my parallel lines there kind of ran into the other line, which will happen occasionally. You just got to go with it. You've got the opportunity to take little tiny lines then outside of the bigger, thicker lines, and that will add some interest too. And it carries through on that tribally theme, I think. So looks like I've got my smaller Mark Reed brush there. It's a number 2, And sometimes my bigger brush, I have a hard time getting thinner lines there, so I'll grab a little thinner brush. And I'm going to get some dot groupings in there. I try not to go too much around the interior of my eye, mostly because I have softer skin on the interior of my eye, but also kids aren't always that comfortable with it. So if I can make my designs not real busy right underneath my eye in those areas, it's probably good practice for me because the kids don't like it anyway. So your lining needs to be really tidy. That's basically what I'm going for. I'm trying to make my lining very, very tidy, predictable, have a good flow, and be balanced from one side of the design to the other one. Pretty. The lace and the combination of the lace and the tattoo look really cool together, I think. Well, we've got to get some lips on there. Little black line around the pretty green from the Sherbet Fizz split cake. The stencil I used in this design is a badass stencil from Face Paint Forum Shop, number 1420. I don't think I mentioned that. And I think we're going to put on some little dots right here at the end to finish off the you know, to kind of add to the laciness of it right next to the thick lines. Gotta have a few finishing dots. Then it's perfect. Well, thanks for coming and watching this today. This has been a great design, and I'd love to see your results in playing with this. Thank you. Bye-bye.